Damn, look at my face.
That's a great way to start. Welcome everyone to episode 6 of JnJ Code. That's Jake and I'm Jim. Today's topic is health.
And it's fitting for the topic because we are going through a supposed pandemic. And look how empty this place is. We're at a shopping mall and it's kind of late.
I thought you were going to say it's fitting because the pandemic's made everyone gain weight.
Everyone gained weight.
COVID-19 kilos heavier.
I don't know about others, but I sure have.
All right, well, speaking of health, we're actually exercising during the episode because we're holding, as you can see, the camera moving, we're holding it. All right, Deacon, so I've always thought of health in 5 categories. Okay, there's the obvious physical health, but then there's also mental health. And a third one that's not obvious to most, I think, is spiritual health. And then there's social health. Okay, I think that's definitely one aspect. And then fifth and finally is debatable, but for me, I think of finances, so financial health, which is a whole different podcast. Today, obviously, I'm not trying to throw a curveball. I think most are probably thinking mainly about physical
health.
But I will add maybe
mental health.
I'll add one thing about mental. So here's the definition. Mental health is a commitment to reality no matter the cost. All right? Mental health is a commitment to reality no matter the cost. Now, why would we have to be committed to reality? You might think, isn't reality just what it is? Like it's real, it's obvious. Well, yes and no. I think when we're sober-minded, when we're honest with ourselves, reality is fairly obvious, whether it's about you or about your surroundings, your life, but
your relationship,
relationships,
family members.
But the problem with, I speak from experience without getting too personal, but I can tell you that I've been immersed in literature and with groups of people who talk about these kinds of things, and for many of us, there are escapes, right? We escape to get rid of stress or pain or guilt, or maybe just to go toward pleasure, procrastination. So, those escapes could be all the obvious things, whether it's food, drugs, smoking, sex, TV, entertainment, video games, right? But oftentimes, we indulge, right? And
hedonistic pleasures.
Yes, or we just enter some kind of fantasy world where, we don't want to face reality. So, mental health, again, the quote is that it's a commitment to reality, and that's
no
something
matter the cost.
Yes, no matter the cost. So, what are the costs? I guess the cost would be all those things we just mentioned. The the fun or the temporary fix
or possible
escaping.
Judgment. Because most people will fall into denial and act according to their denials, or should I say, bend over to their denials, give in to their denials.
Okay.
Temptations to hide the truth that can be either devastating or embarrassing for them. I think health, both physical and mental, are something that every time we do something wrong to it, it takes away from the end, not from the front. What I mean is, let's say we're in our early 20s, we're still at a very, very healthy age, and we pull an all-nighter for an entire week. And yet we're still able to function really well with just little to no sleep because we're young and our bodies regenerate faster. So we think, it's no big problem for me, no issue. What we don't realize is that our health has been cut short at the end. So we won't know until we get there. Sometime in our later years, in our 60s or 70s or even 50s, we get there and realize, I didn't know my health was cut so short. And that's a result of all those years as a young person abusing your body or even your mental well-being through indulging in either hedonistic pleasures or denial or just simply not letting your body to heal properly before moving on to other activities. So I myself am guilty of that during my late 20s when I started going clubbing a lot over the weekends and pulling all-nighters almost every weekend. Not really taking care of my body, just giving in to my desire for pleasure.
Kobe Bryant, the late great basketball player, I'm sure he co-wrote it, but there's a book where he talked about his commitment to his craft, right, which involved working out. It involved being, committed to a certain regimen. But at the same time, he was a very committed family man. So I remember reading, like, it was at Costco. I was reading the book, but he said something to the effect of something had to give. There are only 24 hours in a day, and he decided that he just was going to sacrifice sleep. So he would only sleep maybe 4 hours a day. Okay, in order to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning to exercise, get his workout in, then take his kids to school. All right, come back and eat breakfast or whatever, and do some other stuff, whatever, and then have a second workout in the afternoon, etc. But then later, there was a random YouTube video I saw where he was talking about the importance of sleep. And long story short, because you reminded me when you were talking about your younger days, he was probably mid-30s at the time, okay, where he said, he realized that he just wasn't functioning at the same level that he was accustomed to. And largely that was because of a lack of sleep. And he realized when he would get the 8 hours that we all have heard from countless scientists and studies and mom and dad growing up, 8 hours is pretty much the magic number. Right? Like he was just that much better. Jeff Bezos from Amazon famously said he religiously gets 8 hours of sleep a day. You might think that you're less, you're losing time, but you're actually getting more productive during the 16 hours that you're awake. And he even said if he gets 6 hours of sleep, that he's only at 75% capacity, because he's only got 75% of the sleep that he wished to get. So I bring this up only because sleep is such a huge part of physical health, and more generally speaking. So we're making this video here, Jacob, and we have years and years, for me at least, of just input from countless sources about health. Like, what's healthy? How do we live healthy? How do we eat healthy? Right? How do we maintain that? Fad diets, etc. So let's just cut to the chase. We're trying to make this more concise than usual. Jacob, what are some of the like non-negotiables, or how about this? What are some things that you've been successful health-wise in maintaining, whether it's recently or at some stage in your life? Because I'm sure the Taco Bell meal that you had just before shooting this would not qualify as desirable health, although maybe it would. You can correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay, for me, a non-negotiable would be a good Mexican meal. Nowadays, I just can't get enough tacos. So I had 4 tacos for dinner. Dale Carnegie said that 99.9% of all of our diseases that people die from were a result of stress. So yes, we all know by now that mental health does affect heavily our physical health. Like you said, sleep is very important, because without the proper 7.5 to 8 hours of sleep per night, we are not functioning at our full capacity. And I also heard that if you actually go over the recommended amount of sleep time, your body starts gaining fatigue. So if you sleep for like 12 hours, your body is spending 4 of those hours accumulating fatigue. So it's not really healthy. But obviously, like, if after we pull an all-nighter, we feel like we need the compensation, so we sleep in and we sleep more, and maybe that might be helpful in terms of our mental health. Like, we need to feel that we've gotten enough rest. But it's all about the time you wake up. They also say, like, if you want to change your sleeping habits, wake up at the same time every morning, regardless of how many hours you got sleep. So if you want to get your 8 hours of sleep, make sure that you go to bed at a time where you can wake up at that fixed time every morning after getting your 8 hours in.
I've also heard it's good to set an alarm for when to go to bed. That's something probably no one does. but setting an alarm to go to bed.
Right.
That's really important because it almost doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't, for me at least, 8 hours is 8 hours. It doesn't matter if you you go to bed at 9 p.m. or if you go to bed at 3 a.m. You need 8 hours. So if you want to get up at 6 a.m. or whatever, just subtract the 8 and then make sure you're in bed by 10.
Right. And also, many sources also testify that you need to be in your REM cycle by 1 a.m. And that is the optimal time window for... Nowadays they have apps, like the iPhone has a built-in app where it tracks your sleep time and alerts you when your bedtime is around or when it's time to wake up. You can also set it up and you can change the times according to your personal schedules. But yeah, modern technology certainly does have its perks in helping us maintain our biorhythms. We just don't make use of it enough.
Yeah, so let's make this personal, Jake. Like, going back to the original question, what are some things that you have done or are doing? Whether it's using an app or following some habits. I mean, I'm thinking about boxing, for example.
Yeah.
You had a season where you were boxing and it affected your diet, it affected everything.
Right.
It affected your confidence in the end. I think people want to hear, or at least I want to hear, more about the success personally, because no one can read a book.
Right.
And they can say it better than we do, right?
Right.
So what have you done?
So, in terms of personal experience, well, all my life, until my late 20s, I never really felt like my body was a strength of mine. And one of the main reasons was I stopped growing in terms of height at a pretty early age. Like, I think when I was in my freshman year of high school, I stopped growing.
I stopped in 8th grade.
Yeah, and all my friends, many friends who were also shorter than me at that time, started outgrowing me throughout the high school years, and it was especially hard when my brother started outgrowing me. And I never had a fist fight with anyone in my life, literally. One of the reasons is because I never felt that I was a strong person physically. Not only because of my size, but because I was never really, I was pretty athletic in sports, but I was never really strong. I never really considered myself pretty strong and powerful. So I avoided most physical conflicts. The first time I actually started truly gaining confidence in my body was, I think, in my second year in the Air Force. Now, I was an officer, so my schedule was pretty much like an office worker. And being stationed on a U.S. Air Force base, I was really happy to get access to all the American restaurants on base. Every lunch was a happy choice, was a happy meal for me.
Literally.
Yeah, a happy choice of which place I'm gonna eat that I hadn't had for...
Popeyes.
Yeah, there was no Arby's, but they had a Chili's. They had the Officers Club, which had a lunch buffet throughout the week for just $10. So that was amazing.
Today, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so just want to make sure.
And I realized that in my second year, we took a physical test, and I had gained 8 or 9 kilograms above my average. This was shocking because I was in pretty good shape after training camp. So from then on, I tenaciously started walking most places I went. I would walk regardless of the weather, because I know a lot of people would tell themselves excuses like, oh, it's raining today, so I'll take the bus. Oh, it's cold today, so I'll just drive to work. Oh, I'm running late, so I'm gonna have to take the car. But back then, I never let myself give any excuses. No matter the weather, if it was raining, snowing, hot, or cold, I always walked, and I took the longer route. So there was a time when I was forced to get off work at 2 or 3 a.m. every single day of the week because it was a tough time for our base. And it was roughly a 20-minute walk back to my quarters, but I always took the 40-minute walk, and which was a mixture of up hills and some rough roads. So yeah, I definitely got my exercise in daily. After about 2 months of that, I realized that I had lost almost all of the 8 kilograms that I had gained. And not only that, but even though all I did was pretty much walk, I started gaining abs that I never thought I even had. And that was the first time in my life that I actually felt good about my body. I remember there were some times when I would just look at myself in the mirror in awe because, wow, is that truly my body? Like, I was almost ripped. Yeah, always struck him.
Awestruck.
Yeah, awestruck. And boxing was after my Saudi Arabia assignment because there I had gained 15 kilograms. Now, you'll see the difference between myself now, myself in Saudi, and myself post-boxing. I never really thought about diets because I've heard those rigorous, horrible diets of people living only on unseasoned chicken breasts and sweet potatoes. And that's got to be depressing.
Let me butt in here for a second about diets.
Yeah.
So the question is, should you go on a diet? And I think the short answer is no. Okay, but the longer answer is diets can work to achieve weight loss,
right?
But it's short term. So if you only care about that, like if you're doing, I don't know, some special or making some kind of YouTube video like this, and you want to, whatever, lose a few pounds, then dieting can work. In the past, I've done the South Beach diet. This was, I think, 2004. I think I just got fed up with how I looked and my big fat belly. This is, you know, I was in my 20s at the time.
Yeah.
And it worked. Now, my weight doesn't move, my weight doesn't fluctuate often, but I lost about 8 or 9 pounds in 2 weeks, I think.
Wow.
Just eating basically no carbs. I remember I was eating pork chops, I think, every night.
Wow.
And pork rinds as a snack because I just craved chips. And then fast forward to 2015, before coming to Korea, my wife was like, you gotta lose weight. You know, Koreans are not fat and their clothes are tight. So
you gotta
okay,
fit in.
I went vegan for 60 days.
Wow.
That was one of the hardest things I've done.
Oh yeah, I remember that time. You went vegan for health reasons.
Yeah, it was for vanity's sake. It wasn't really healthy. I mean, I was definitely, I was able to avoid meat and dairy, but I was eating lots of red pizzas, lots of tofu burrito bowls from Chipotle.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, it was okay. I lost the pounds, but it's not sustainable because, you know, I love meat and, you know, so the short answer is no. If you really want a change, and I remember my brother saying something like, you know, you got to think of it not as a diet, but think of it as a life change, and that's really it. Now, it's too intimidating and too overwhelming for most people, most of us, to imagine like, oh, I'm never gonna have a hamburger again or whatever. So I think, you know, the key is to not try to think of your whole life, but just understand that your palate will change over time. Now, I say this with mild experience, but I know this to be true. Like, I know it to be true mainly from exercise. So we'll get into that a little bit, but I just wanted to point out the word diets because, you know, I think still, you know, there's a huge industry centered around all different kinds of diets, right? And really, you should be thinking about, like, not what diet can I go on, but what diet can I permanently live with. And hopefully it's a healthy one.
The good thing is, though, like I mentioned earlier, when I started boxing, I didn't really care about dieting because I knew I couldn't go on the strict diets that people go through. And I love food, I love beer, so I knew I wasn't going to be able to keep up with it. Like you said, if you intimidate yourself with grand plans, chances are you're going to fail. So what I did, I just started boxing. Now, boxing is a very high intense sport. It falls under the category of HIIT training. It's high intensity interval training, meaning you keep tricking your body into not having a certain pattern, because if you run every day, your body's going to start requiring more intense workouts in order to lose weight and gain muscle. So HIIT training is pretty good. And once I started feeling the effects of boxing, like my body was getting tighter, I was getting thinner, clothes were starting to fit better, and I liked myself a lot better in the mirror. That's when my body, I realized, started to crave healthier food. Now, I love Doritos, I love beer, but once my body started getting in that flow, I no longer craved it as much. And it was very easy to overcome the temptations. So right now I'm out of shape. If you offer me a beer, there's no way I'm saying no to that. If you offer me a taco, oh, I'm gonna gobble it up. Even if you didn't offer me a taco, I'll try to find a way to get it from you. But in my healthy state, when someone offered me a beer, it was very easy to say no. And pretty soon I started figuring out my own diet that fits me. So I had minor seasoned chicken meat, and it was delicious. I liked it, and it definitely had less fat in it. And I had the whole grain bread and apples because I love apples. And I usually had those for either dinner or lunch. So one meal a day, I will at least have those, and the other meal, whatever I happen to be having, I just let myself go for it, just making sure that I don't order the fattiest of items on the menu. Obviously, if you're at Taco Bell, pretty much all the items are going to be similar, but just making minor efforts. And then I found the diet that fit me well, and I didn't come up with that diet in one day. It just, I started learning because I was curious, out of curiosity, not out of duty. If you make up your mind and say, okay, from now I'm going to work out every day, and I'm going to do this as my diet, chances are you're going to fail, almost 100%. But just go one by one. I started feeling the effects of boxing, and I started wondering, what more can I do to help it? And then one by one, I started learning what sort of ingredients, what sort of nutrients were necessary, were not necessary, and I found my own way. So yeah.
Yeah, one thing leads to another. It's like a snowball effect. You know, it's like the old proverb, the journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step.
Yeah.
You mentioned how your appetite was changing just today. I took Javen to Baskin Robbins, which is our tradition after we eat the donklass meal.
Yeah.
And it's the first time in probably hundreds of times we've been there now.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't finish his cone. He said as soon as he started eating it, he just wasn't craving it, and said he was craving fruits and vegetables. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. He literally stopped eating and said, "Daddy, can I throw away the cone? I'm so sorry." Of course, I dutifully finished it for him, but I was just so happy to hear. Yeah, and I wonder if part of it might have been because we had just exercised.
Yeah.
We just biked from our house to Shincheon, and that might have something to do with it. Like you'll notice after exercising, your body's craving, you're craving like vitamin C a lot, right? You're not craving greasy food typically, so so that's just a general point you're making, which is I guess momentum, one thing that leads to another, and just kind of go with it. It's about going in the right direction.
Right.
And I guess here's where I'll interject my current I don't know, thing that I'm doing, which is push-ups. Okay, and I want to give David Goggins some credit. You'll hear me talk about David Goggins a lot. All right, if you don't know who that is, go on YouTube. Yeah, it's an amazing story.
Yeah.
But yeah, he says embrace the suck. You know, if it doesn't suck, he doesn't do it. I think you're the one that mentioned, Jakin, like when you are at the point of collapse, you're actually only at 80%, right? Goggins would probably say you're only at 10%, okay, or something like that. Now,
I think it was Goggins who said that, but I forget.
So a couple of weeks ago, I just started doing push-ups, and I used him as a motivation because it was a 10-minute video. The title was something like David Goggins workout. I was like, yeah, I can do a 10-minute workout. Well, little did I know that it was 10 minutes of like an hour, because what he was doing was 17 push-ups every minute for 1 hour.
Right.
Okay, so 60 sets on the minute.
Which
17
adds up to,
which adds up to roughly 1,000, a little bit over 1,000. And guess how many sets I did the first try? Just guess.
3.
Yeah. Well, I did 4. I think
and you felt that was your limit, right?
Well, I mean, I knew I could do more, but I couldn't keep up with the pace, and I was just tired and whatever. So this is, I don't know, less than a month ago for sure. And
now how many sets do you do?
I was motivated by it today, and every day I try to do maybe 1 set extra from the previous one. Okay. Now, before I give you the answer, the answer is I'm not sure exactly how many push-ups, because when I get too tired, I get up, I do it from my knees, which is obviously a lot easier. Right. But when you're like pretty much like tapped out, that's still really hard. I mean, I'm dripping sweat by the time I'm done. But so now I'm at. I did 23 sets.
Wow.
This morning or this afternoon.
So that's a 500% jump.
My plan is to do 10 more. So again, I'm trying to just do one extra every day. And you know, what seemed impossible, 1,000 push-ups. This is going back to your point. If you start with that from zero, you can't do 1,000. You're just probably never going to start. But suddenly now, I remember when I hit 500 for the day, I was like, oh, you know, I just did 500 push-ups today. Now, they weren't all like clean push-ups. They're probably, I would say a little less than half were probably legit. So, you know, let's say 200 push-ups, legit ones.
200 proper ones.
That's still, like, to me, more than I've ever done, like, in a day, right? But I know I'm nowhere near my limit. Like, and what encourages you, just like what encouraged you, when you look at yourself in the mirror, you started feeling better, your clothes are fitting differently. Like, push-ups, the reason why I love it so much is it's such an easy thing to count, right? So you can see the progress very clearly. And that motivates you to keep going. It's a mental game as well. Like, I can't tell you, I tell my wife every single time, like when I whether it's running or doing push-ups, I pretty much hate every second of it, and I dread starting it. Like, there's never a time where I'm like, oh my God, I can't wait to get started. I'm always just like, all right, just start. And that's sort of a lesson for life as well, right? Whether it's a project, whether it's getting a job, whatever. You just start, and then the momentum kind of builds.
Yeah.
And before you know it, you're halfway, and then you're like, all right, well, I'm not going to stop now. Or sometimes you're like, you really want to quit. And I'm like, you know what? I've done this before. I can do it again. That's a great line that a friend of mine from high school used to say. I've done it before. I can do it again. So that's how you can build your mental capacity. I'm pretty sure that you could go back to where you were in your boxing days or your army days, right?
Yeah, that can also work as a hindrance because I know I can do it when I put my mind to it. I put it off. I'm not afraid of it. Yeah. So I let myself get out of shape.
So let's do a little scan of your body here. So when are you gonna get sick of this?
I don't know.
All right.
But we both are really out of shape. But hopefully,
hold on.
In the following, hopefully in the following weeks or months, we will be able to show you the progress that we're making. I haven't started anything yet, by the way. I've actually started a Mexican diet, so I'm having a lot of tacos.
Yeah.
And I had a cinnamon snack that they had at Taco.
The Mas diet.
Okay.
As in more, right?
Okay.
So,
more is less.
Here's another general kind of tip or moral. Don't let setbacks hold you down. Recently, as I mentioned, I was running, and I had ambitions, believe it or not, Jacob. Did I ever tell you? To do a 100-mile ultra marathon one day.
Oh wow!
I've never so much as done a half marathon. I think the most I've ever run at once was 10 miles, which is less than half of a marathon.
Right.
But I seriously wanted to do a 100-mile ultra marathon, which I first heard about from, once again, David Goggins. I watched a YouTube video about some Asian guy. I didn't know he was Asian until I started watching. That did 100-mile in high altitude, by the way. So, but here's my point. I started having knee pain. Okay, got an MRI. Long story short, I have some damage on my knee, so I really shouldn't be doing high impact exercise. So I'm not gonna run. And it's not like I used to, because it was hurting every day. I think you were there when I was just like every other minute I was like you know? Grimacing and buckling. So because of that, I've been biking a lot, right? And I guess that's been a blessing in disguise because I really enjoy it. I mean, I've done it with Javen today, but really, when you do it with Javen, it's not really a workout. But yeah, I've been going further and further, and it feels great when you're done. So, you know, whatever sets you back, like, there's always an alternative. There's always another way to look at it, and always a way to make it positive. So that's just my encouragement. That's something that's real talk from me, coming from, you know, real experience. So, what are some tips you can speak of, or advice, or?
Well, once you get in the flow, like you said, once you gain that momentum, then even when you're in agony, you still feel motivated to challenge yourself for one more, or a few more, or an hour longer. And I always used to top off my workout during boxing with a few tries of low planking. Now, I was not good at it, but I knew that it really helps body circulation. It really, it's an all-body workout. Of course, boxing, like, you're jumping around all day. That's a full body workout too. But I just felt like I needed something more to supplement it. So even though I was exhausted, because my strict rule, just like when I was walking my weight off, was that the 3-minute and 30-second rule, I never broke it. Never, not once. So you work out for 3 minutes nonstop, and you only get a 30-second break to either drink water or just take a breath or whatever, which I often drink cold water because I was so hot. But when I heard that bell ring after 30 seconds, no matter how tired I was or how thirsty I still felt, I just put myself back in the ring and started jumping around again. Shadow boxing and jump roping and after about an hour and a half to 2 hours of that, I would decide, okay, it's time to top it off. Then I would start going into push-ups, crunches, and some other exercises that help tighten the neck and back and legs and the waist. And then I would end that floor exercise with a low plank and try to challenge myself to maintain that position for longer. And surely enough, after about 2 months of that, I lost the entire 15 kilograms. Not only that, I fit better in my clothes, and usually it's around those times when I spend more money, much more money on clothes, because you go to the store, try on things, and everything you try on looks so good on you, so you just have to buy it. So yeah, those times I would spend an average $500 every visit to a store.
Let me play devil's advocate, Jacob. I remember a bumper sticker I saw that said, in the States, it said, eat healthy and die anyway. What would you say to someone who says, you know what, get out of here with your kale smoothies and healthy talk and all this stuff? There's a stand-up comedy bit I heard, I forgot who. He basically said, just give me my milkshakes and steak and let me die happily. I don't want to eat healthy, I want to eat happy.
Well,
you know what?
That's how you feel, then no judgment, because I agree. I mean, I'm really tempted to do that too. You know?
But how would you persuade that person to change that outlook? Because it sounds reasonable.
I don't know if I want to try to convince that person otherwise, because if they've made up their mind to eat happy, then it's their choice. And sometimes, like Dale Carnegie said, 99% of the cause of diseases is stress. So if you're stressing over having to work out, having to lose that weight, just eating happier will probably more than make up for the unhealthy eating habits. But mind you, they do say that your body shape is affected by eating habits up to 80%. So even if you're working out, if your eating habits are horribly out of order, you'll probably see little to no results. On the other hand, if you're not working out and you decide to eat healthy, you will start seeing results. And I have also had experience with that. There was a time before my military years where my average, every once in a while, I would step on the scale and realize that I had gained about 3 kilograms from my average. And what I would do from then is just stop snacking. Because I would usually have a bag of Doritos before bed almost every night, and that would cause the gain weight. And when I realized that, I would just do my best not to snack, and the only time I would eat were for the 3 meals a day. I would really hold myself from getting a bag of Doritos or anything, or even if a dessert. And after about 2 or 3 weeks, I would shed that 3 kilograms, that extra 3 kilograms I had gained. So you got to remember the saying, you are what you eat. So if you eat junk food, your body becomes junk. That's pretty much it. And I can feel that, because once your body starts getting healthier, your body starts craving healthier. So yeah, it's all tied in.
Yeah, my brother's really good about this. Like he exerts very little energy on a day-to-day basis. He understands that if you spend less energy and you eat less, your stomach, I don't know if it shrinks, but your appetite doesn't, it goes down.
Yeah.
And isn't it funny how there's usually a threshold when you're really hungry, your body responds to what you give it, right? Or what you don't give it. So I'm sure you've experienced this before, like for whatever reason, you might be really hungry, but then you don't eat, and then after a while, you're not as hungry, or you're not even hungry at all.
Right.
Your stomach just kind of says, "Oh, okay." You're not
We're not
listening to
getting
you're not responding to my growls and my
Yeah.
pains of hunger. So I'm just gonna stop. I'm just gonna give up.
Yeah.
Like, stop bothering you.
Your body adapts to it.
And conversely, how often is this true? Like, you're eating and it's delicious and it's junk, and the more you eat, the more you want.
The more you want, regardless of how full you
just
are.
hungry. Yeah. Well, not just that, but
that was true for my 4 tacos.
You feel hungrier.
Yeah.
You actually feel like you want more.
You want to indulge more in it.
Yes.
Pleasure yourself, right?
Yeah. I don't know if I use those words, but you just want more. You feel like you could eat more, and you have room for more. Well, so it's counterintuitive, right? But it's funny how
I gotta say, if you continue craving yourself to indulge in those tasty fatty junk food, it's pretty much the equivalence of masturbation. So you are actually pleasuring yourself because it's equivalent in the fact that you're doing what triggers a release of dopamine in your brain.
You just saw the tree that we're sitting under.
Yeah, and my phone did a backward flip. So.
Yeah, nice. Okay, well, I just have one more thing to add to wrap things up, which is, speaking of motivation. So why try to be healthy? There are lots of reasons why. Most of us, if we're honest, it's for vanity. Okay, we want to look better and you want to feel better. Let me submit to you that I have a wife and kids. You are yet to have those, but may one day. Do it for their sake. I have a friend who's not much older than I am. He's only a couple years older, actually, who just had a health scare. In fact, he was in the ICU a couple days ago, thinking that he might need a stent, which, for those who don't know, is basically, to help with the blood flow in your heart, because you're at risk of a heart attack, or maybe you've experienced a heart attack. Luckily, he didn't need the stent, but he's on medication now, and he has 3 kids. And I thought, of course, your mind goes all over the place when you hear news like that. You just never know. Right. Even though it's a pretty safe procedure, obviously it's a sign of potentially worse things. And it's just, being healthy has so many benefits, not just for yourself, but for others. Right. Earlier I talked about social health.
Right.
But then it affects your mind. It affects just how you think and how clear you think and how well you can reason. It affects your ability to do other things, whether it's, like I mentioned before, financial health perhaps, or spiritual health. They're all connected. I mean, going back to spiritual health, Charles Spurgeon, who is from one of the most famous preachers from the 1800s, he talked a lot about the benefits of going out for a walk, like a prayer walk. Just go out and walk and pray. And it's amazing how physical well-being, or just a little bit of exercise, moderate, can just even have spiritual effects. Now, of course, you remember Kuho from FNTM. He gave a talk. Remember about this? He said 30 minutes of walking a day can prevent prevent Alzheimer's or other kinds of brain diseases. Yeah.
So I've had my
schizophrenia.
30 minutes of walk today before my heavy Mexican meal. Thanks to my car being in the last spot I looked in the entire apartment complex. Nice. I was so pissed about that earlier, but come to think of it, I had my 30 minutes of walk today.
There you go. Perfect example of setback becomes benefit.
Yeah, blessing in disguise. Yeah, we're really reaching here.
No, I don't think so. I think that's a legit example.
Yeah, it's true that I did walk around a lot, back and forth in that parking lot, looking for the car, pressing the remote control. Right. So I actually did some finger exercise too. Sure, but it was probably offset by your mental anger and anguish and frustration. Because stress causes 99% of the disease. Oh my God. Yeah, I was not in a very happy state at that time. Not only because of the car, but several other reasons. Here's
a question I have before I forget. You've heard me talk about David Goggins. You've heard me cite a couple people, Kobe Bryant, for example. Who are some health role models of yours that you want to emulate?
The truth is, I don't have any, because like I said, in my younger years, I never really considered my body an asset. So my younger brother, he's taller, he's much more athletic. So obviously he was into a lot of the self-workout things and he researched a lot. So, but if you don't really consider yourself, your body an asset, you don't really feel the interest to do any research or listen to anyone talking about health. I only started gaining confidence about my body when I started doing the workout myself. So I don't really have a role model.
Okay. So are you saying, just to make it a little personal, are you saying that even now, like today, right now, you are self-conscious about your body?
I don't spend the entire day feeling self-conscious, but every once in a while I notice myself in the mirror. I do feel, one of these days I'm gonna have to make up my mind again. Just not today.
Well, like my wife always says, I'll start on Monday.
Or I'll start tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'll say the same thing tomorrow. So
Well, for her it sounds more believable, but it's just as ineffective because she almost never starts on Monday. But when you say Monday, like it's specific, right? It's a schedule.
But then come Tuesday, you'll say, I'll start on Monday. You buy yourself
There's always another Monday.
Another week,
Until there's not, or until you're so fat.
In the words of Bill Burr, eat an apple and go for a walk, you fat.
So I said my last thing. Here's my last thing. Maybe my last thing. Who knows? Forget about gyms, man. Gyms are overrated. You have a yoga mat, or even the like for me, I use the kids' play mat, the Proto mat. You have a TV, you have YouTube, you have all the workout equipment that you need. Now I can do more. I can get stretch bands or push-up bars. I mean, there's always something more. But even with just your body, I mean, I just said before, push-ups don't require anything.
Yeah.
Planking doesn't require anything. You could stretch. You could find workouts on YouTube for free, of all levels, obviously, of all lengths, and there's just no excuse, man. I mean, that's what I've been used. I used one I started doing yoga just from watching videos. You know?
If you find yourself coming up with excuses not to work out, just listen to David Goggins, because you hear that guy talk for 5 minutes, you feel like you're gonna have to go climb a mountain right away or something.
Yeah, for sure.
No excuses. And also, going back, briefly touching on the mental health part. Your self-image is heavily affected by how you see yourself in the mirror. So if you look at yourself in the mirror every day and see someone who's saggy and overweight, your confidence and your self-image is going to decline over time. Which is why it's not only important to look good in the mirror, but it's also important to dress well sometimes, because the way you view yourself affects the way you act in front of others. So if you're dressed, like if you're trying to make a sale and you're dressed really professionally in a really nicely fit suit, you're gonna feel like a professional and you're gonna act more like a professional. But if you're trying to make a sale in a t-shirt and jeans, your actions are going to be affected by that. And it's going to be a little more difficult for you to act more professional and confident. You're just going to feel like you're out for a play date and you just happen to be convincing a friend. It's not going to be very healthy mindset for you. So if you want a healthy mindset, it also helps not only to feed your brain with information and more learning, but it's also important to look good in your own way in the mirror. So if you're satisfied with the way you look right now, regardless of how much you weigh or how much body fat or muscle you have, then good. I'm happy for you. But we know that many of you have concerns about your health and your body image. We encourage you to get yourself fit, at least to a level where you'll feel satisfied and happy about yourself, enough to feel more confident.
You were talking about how you look, right? And my verse of encouragement there too. 1 Samuel 16:7. For man looks at the outward appearance, but God looks at the heart. So remember that in this, particularly here in Korea, where image is almost literally everything, and the plastic surgery capital of the world, right? How many makeup cosmetic companies do we have? Retail outlets do we have in this country? But anyway, so just a reminder, right? It's what's inside that counts. It is cliche, but it's true. Beauty goes from inside out. And then 1 Timothy 4:8, for physical training is of some value, but godliness has value for all things, holding promise for both the present life and the life to come. So let's remember that these bodies of ours, they are inevitably going to decay, whether it's hopefully at a ripe old age, but physically there's just no defeating Father Time, right? So what do we do? Do we get depressed and try to push back the hands of time? Do we try to avoid it like some people do? There's a whole
Botox.
There's a whole well, not just Botox, but I mean there's all kinds of like
implants.
There are people who actually get blood transfusions from young people, hoping to somehow rejuvenate themselves, right? And
I wonder how scientifically viable that is.
There's such a fear of death, and I want to say that health is related to death, right? But death is actually biblically. I don't know if you know this, Jacob. Death was never. It's not natural. Steve Jobs famously said, "Death is part of life," and then he died a couple years later. He famously said that in the Stanford commencement speech, 2004. But death is actually not God's intention. Death only came about because of sin, right? Thankfully, there's redemption through Jesus Christ, so that we can basically be born again, right, and risen again in glorified form. So, not to get too theological, but these bodies we're in now are flawed, and it's a reminder, because we see ourselves, our flaws, increasing physical flaws, that it's temporary, right? But there is an eternal life, and I don't know exactly how it's going to look, but I do know that the Bible mentions that we will, those who believe will be resurrected in basically new bodies that are glorified, and I'm assuming more beautiful, but still recognizable. So who knows? And we'll have to wait and see. So yeah, I'll end with that.
Thank you for tuning in.
Yeah. Good job for another episode.
Yeah.
Now that we talked about health, let's go get some burgers.
And some French fries.
Lose all credibility. No, in all seriousness, let's try to be healthy in all manners, and another day. I'll see you when I see you.
Sooner rather than later.
All right.